Hello and welcome to Maraxo's Reviews and How-Tos. My name is Brian, and as you know, in this video we're taking a look at the VR performance of the RTX 5070 Ti in Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020. For this video, I tested the 5070 Ti at both low and ultra settings in Flight Simulator, as well as tested with and without using DLSS. So you'll want to stick around for more than just this first 30 seconds worth of gameplay footage. I started off my testing with the 5070 Ti using my Quest 3 connected to my PC wirelessly using Virtual Desktop. I set the render resolution in Virtual Desktop to medium, which uses a resolution of 2112 by 2304 per eye, or a total resolution of 4224 by 2304. I don't know how Geek Odin is doing this, but medium in Virtual Desktop looks better to me than higher resolutions I've used with QuestLink. Anyway, I started off with the refresh rate set to 120 Hz and Flight Simulator's graphical settings on low to establish our baseline. As you can see in this training flight over Sedona, Arizona, I was averaging over 80 FPS at these settings. Looking at FPS VR's GPU and CPU frame time graphs, you can see as long as I was looking in the same direction, we were getting a very solid, consistent frame rate. As I moved my head around though, we'd see the CPU frame time spike, and that delay in the CPU sending draw calls to the GPU resulted in a little bit of stuttering. It wasn't bad, but it was there. Changing the refresh rate to 72 Hz took a decent amount of load off both the CPU and GPU, making a very nice improvement to the overall experience, giving us a nice, smooth 72 FPS for the entire duration of the flight. Switching to the Discovery flight over New York City, the 5070 Ti continued to churn out a pretty consistent frame rate, as long as I kept looking in the same direction. As I turned my head to look around, once again you can see on the CPU frame time graph that my Ryzen 7 9800X3D, as powerful as it is, was struggling to get the draw calls out on time, which negatively affected our frame rate a little bit. Over the course of the 6 minutes or so it took me to fly around Midtown and Lower Manhattan, we averaged close to 71 FPS, so still a really nice result overall. Turning the in-game graphical settings up to Ultra put quite a bit more stress on my test system. As you can see, both the CPU and GPU frame time graphs are orange here, meaning they were both taking longer than the 13.8 milliseconds that is required for us to hit our target of 72 FPS. But despite the frame rate only being in the high 40s, the experience wasn't terrible. It was consistent enough that the flight felt okay. The visuals, on the other hand, were absolutely stunning. What was kind of surprising to me was performance was more or less the same in the New York City flight. I was anticipating the frame rate to be at least 10 FPS lower than Sedona, Arizona, but it seems at the resolution, refresh rate, and graphical settings I used here, we've reached a sort of equilibrium with the 5070 Ti, where we get pretty much the same frame rate no matter where we're flying. Keeping Flight Simulator's quality settings on Ultra and everything else the same, I turned on DLSS to see what kind of difference it would make. Now, I've tried using DLSS in the past, and I didn't like how blurry it made things look. Yes, it helped improve the frame rate, but I felt it made the visuals look like poo. I like my visuals to be sharp and crisp, so personally, I don't use DLSS in VR. However, people keep asking me to test Flight Simulator using it. And yeah, I know that Nvidia has made a lot of improvements to DLSS over the past several years, so, you know, it probably is about time that I give it another try. To keep the visuals looking as good as possible, I set the DLSS mode to quality, and this is how things went. Visuals were noticeably blurrier than when not using DLSS, but they do look better now than what I remember from the last time I tried using it a couple years ago. Looking at the GPU frame time graph, we were right where we needed to be, but once again, the CPU frame times were a little slow. That said, using DLSS did give us a nice boost to our frame rate, taking us up over 60 FPS, which made for a nice improvement to the feel of the flying experience. And had I used DLSS balanced or performance, the frame rate would have been even better, but most likely at the cost of some slightly more degraded visuals. In the New York City flight, there was a slight decrease to the average frame rate, but I was still getting around 60 FPS most of the time. Now, when it comes to using DLSS or not using it, I do like the boost to the frame rate it offers, but like I already said, I wish it didn't soften the visuals as much as it does. But because of how DLSS works, that's the trade-off you have to make, seeing as it's an upscaling technology. For those who don't understand how it works, what's going on is the game is actually being rendered at a lower resolution and then being run through an AI upscaler. The advantage is this helps improve performance, but the disadvantage is since the game is actually being rendered at a lower resolution, some of the detail is lost. This is less noticeable with flat gaming because we're viewing our monitors from further away. In VR, however, we're using lenses to magnify the tiny pixels on our headset's displays, so many of the imperfections that go unnoticed on a monitor become noticeable. As for me personally, I probably don't even need to say this, but I prefer to not use DLSS for VR. But I will say it is nice to have as an option for those who would like to give it a try. Now for all of you who skipped to the end of the video to hear the conclusion rather than watch the video and see for yourself. The 5070 Ti delivered a very nice experience in Flight Simulator, and even with the game's quality settings on low, the visuals don't look bad. And for some of the VR pilots out there, my understanding is many of you have been flying at 30 some odd FPS anyway for years. So for you guys, even the 47 FPS I was getting with the game at ultra settings, I imagine sounds pretty good to you. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, and for more 5070 Ti PC VR content, check out this video where I compare the performance of the 5070 Ti and the RTX 4080 in Half-Life Alyx. And if you like that, then you should totally subscribe to my channel. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Come on, do it. You know you want to. Subscribe.